Living with my functioning alcoholic mom, I manage my brother and household duties while feeling drained and conflicted about her toxic behavior. TLDR, my mother struggles with alcohol dependence, and I need someone's perspective on whether her behavior is typical or if I have legitimate concerns about her toxicity. I apologize for the length of this post, but it requires more than just a couple of paragraphs. Please read at your discretion. Hello, Reddit. I am turning 20 years old this month, and I have been living with my mother for an extended period, trying to assist her as much as I can. I relocated in 2022 when my parents both moved to Texas, while I stayed in California to complete high school. After graduating, 4.0 GPA, student council, extra credits, Teacher's Choice Award, just a little humble brag, class of 2023, I moved back in with my mother. The initial plan was for my ex to join me, and we would quickly find a place together. Unfortunately, that fell through, and I have had to remain with my mother longer than I anticipated. I pay rent, work as a special education paraprofessional, help care for my younger brother, including driving him to school, ensuring he is up and ready in the morning, shuttling him between our parents on weekends, and feeding him when our mother is unavailable, participate in household chores, and take care of my personal expenses. I also try to spend quality time with her by listening to her talk about work or other topics, playing games together, and simply hanging out when possible. My mother is a functioning alcoholic, and she has been for my entire life. She drinks every night. Frankly, I cannot recall a single night in my life when she has not consumed alcohol. Perhaps this was manageable when she was younger. However, she is not as young anymore. She is experiencing health issues and menopause, yet continues to drink as if it were not a concern. She avoids confronting her feelings or discussing her problems, opting instead to suppress them with alcohol. While she is not inebriated every night, she is at least tipsy. Being under the influence daily is undoubtedly unhealthy. She even claims she cannot sleep without drinking. My mother and I used to be close friends, but I put that in quotes because our relationship does not resemble that of typical friends. During my upbringing, I would sit with her while she drank and smoked, eavesdropping on her adult conversations and hearing her speak negatively about my father and his family. They have been divorced since I was 7, after my mother was unfaithful. I even engaged in the negative talk, as she would encourage it. I would defend her vigorously against other family members who disagreed with her choices or lifestyle. I had no idea what I was doing. I was simply following the example I learned from her. I had no friends my age, only her, and I even missed chances to bond with cousins my own age because I spent most nights with her in the garage. Of course, these were my choices as well. I was a preteen and young teenager at the time, so I cannot place all the blame on her. I just wish she had the insight to understand how her actions could impact my development and not allow our relationship to become so dysfunctional. The current issue is not that she has changed, it is that I have. I have matured and engaged in significant personal growth over the past 2 years, transforming into a different person. For instance, during my childhood, I struggled to control my anger. Even to this day, I occasionally feel a flicker of that intense rage when I argue with her. However, I resist giving in to it because it frightens me. I make every effort to be respectful, not just to her but to myself, while also trying to be patient and forgiving. Conversely, my mother has not demonstrated any personal growth. I feel guilty to say it, but many people around us share my perspective. She continues to exhibit drama-filled, negativity-driven behavior, which has characterized her for my entire life. She does not recognize this issue. I believe my mother has good intentions, at least she wishes to, but her words and actions indicate otherwise. She refuses to accept responsibility for her role in our conflicts, instead blaming me for attempting to argue with her or manipulate her. She perceives my behavior as manipulative, even going so far as to label me as a gaslighter throughout my life. As a child, I was branded as manipulative to the extent that I no longer know whether I actually am or am simply convincing myself of that. I believe I am not, but that could just be my self-deception. As I grew older, it dawned on me that perhaps she has been the manipulative one all along. At the very least, she exhibits borderline toxic parenting tendencies. My reasons for believing this go beyond what I have already mentioned. Here are some further observations. 1. During my first relationship in 2023, my mother made me feel guilty for spending more time with my girlfriend than with her, routinely bringing it up as if I were wrong for not prioritizing our friendship. Following my breakup, she angrily confronted my ex over the phone, potentially ruining any chance I had to resolve the matter. 2. She often responds to me with passive aggression for long stretches if she feels upset, regardless of whether I have done anything to upset her. Frequently, I am left in the dark regarding what triggered her feelings. 3. She will remind me of the favors she has done for me or gifts she has given, labeling me ungrateful if I express dissatisfaction with something she has said. 4. She sometimes gives me unsolicited gifts in order to leverage them against me later or to try to buy my love or emotional dependence. 5. She has locked me out of the house or threatened to kick me out multiple times. On one occasion, she physically pushed me toward the door and nearly caught my arm in it as I tried to escape. 6. She has said that I resemble my father and that this resemblance was the reason for their split during our arguments. That remark felt especially hurtful, as she knew exactly what she was saying and how it would affect me. 7. When she is upset, she behaves in overly dramatic ways, including throwing objects and even injuring herself in the process. No matter how angry I become with her, I do not resort to such behavior. She throws tantrums like a child, once throwing her phone and stomping off while angrily shouting, "I hate you," and collapsing on the floor in tears. All of this occurred one night because I refused to converse with her while she was already in a furious state. My brother had to enter my room and physically remove her. 8. No matter what approach I take, whether I engage her or attempt to keep my distance, she remains upset with me. Neither tactic seems to alleviate the tension. 9. She has explicitly gaslit me, continuing to do so even after I acknowledged it and expressed my confusion as to why it was happening. I later discovered that she believed I had been gaslighting her, which I have never done. I could elaborate on this, but I lack the energy at the moment. If someone wishes for further clarification, I can provide it later. 10. Sometimes, she refuses to yield even when I calmly plead with her to stop. She will follow me if I try to walk away. However, when I attempt to have a rational conversation with her, she becomes defensive, accusing me of trying to instigate a fight and claiming she does not wish to argue, quickly retreating to drink. 11. She intimidates me and creates an uncomfortable atmosphere. I feel I should not experience this in a space that is meant to feel like home. 12. Whenever I disagree with her, she takes it very personally and snaps at me. She struggles to cope with the fact that I will not be her unquestioning supporter as I once was. I refuse to allow her to disparage my father in front of me without calling her out for her own hypocrisy. When I do not affirm her views, she becomes angry and resorts to venting to her friends instead. 13. She often twists my words and misreads my actions, which is mentally exhausting. I constantly find myself having to defend my intentions. It also saddens me that my mother seems unaware of who I have become. She refuses to acknowledge my growth and instead resents that I am not the same person I was in my youth. 14. If I were uncomfortable with hugging or physical contact as a child, she would argue she had ownership over me and could touch me whenever she chose, regardless of my feelings. This behavior also extended to my brother. 15. She frequently enters my room or personal spaces and rearranges or takes my belongings without permission. 16. She often displays her bad mood when on the phone with clients. She works from home by rolling her eyes, sighing, scoffing, throwing her hands in disbelief, and sounding irritated in her interactions. This behavior annoys me tremendously. She has also reacted harshly towards my brother for minor distractions while she was working, even yelling at him and throwing her water bottle across her desk, which ended up spilling on her computer. She attempted to blame him for that incident, but she is ultimately responsible for her own overreactions. 17. Something which did not seem toxic when I was younger, I now realize is problematic. My mother would disclose to family or friends that I was a lesbian when asked. I never identified as one. I merely told her I had feelings for girls in the past, leading her to assume that label applied to me. I did not want her to proclaim my sexual orientation. I asked her to either say she was unsure or direct them to ask me, but I suspect she continued to share that information regardless. It's been exhausting to articulate my feelings and rationalize why I feel this way. Externally, my mother does not appear abusive. She is sociable, has many friends, and is generally well regarded. She often boasts about my achievements, including my academic success, my poetry, by the way, I am publishing a poetry collection, and my financial management skills. The harmful things she does are typically subtle, accumulating gradually. She has a knack for hurting me in ways that are just discreet enough to make me feel overly dramatic when discussing my experiences. That's why I am reaching out, wondering if I am being overly dramatic or if this behavior truly indicates toxicity. I love her, and I understand she is dealing with anxiety, alcohol issues, health concerns, and possibly depression, but residing here has become emotionally draining for me. I feel trapped in a cycle of attempting to appease her while also trying to maintain my emotional stability and assert my personal growth. My objective is to save enough funds to move out and establish an independent life, but in the interim, I struggle to figure out how to navigate this situation. It is challenging to balance demonstrating care while also upholding my boundaries when everything I do feels insufficient. She tells me repeatedly that nothing she does satisfies me, even though I clarify that isn't true. I do not want to resort to this, but attempts to communicate my feelings with her have largely been futile. I am considering going no contact, or at least limiting contact when I move out this summer. I would greatly appreciate any advice or insights from anyone who has experienced similar situations or has thoughts on how to manage this dynamic. Ultimately, I would like to know if I am being dramatic or if my mother is indeed toxic. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Also posted on our advice. Story 2. Tricked to present a new app I never used, panicked and missed my train. Called for comfort, but my parents just scolded me instead. Some context first, if it helps. I am a 30-year-old female from France. I work in information technology in France, where labor laws differ from those in the United States. I am a consultant, which means I am employed by a company that sells my expertise to other firms. I possess a multitude of skills, and currently, I hold 3 different positions for my client. I have been collaborating with this particular client for 5 years. Yes, I am a female IT engineer. I suffer from an anxiety disorder for which I take medication. I experienced a burnout during my first year of work. I have 4 siblings. The 2 oldest are half-siblings. English is not my first language, so I apologize for any errors I may make. Additionally, I am still feeling distressed as I write this, so I hope you will understand and forgive me. All names have been changed but remain French. I hope you appreciate them. Last week, I returned to work after taking a 2-week vacation to celebrate my birthday. I am now a joyful 30-year-old Aquarius. Prior to that, I was not working due to pneumonia, marking my 2nd lung infection, having already endured one in December. The doctors suspect it may be long COVID, but no one can be completely certain. In total, I have been away from work for about 3.5 weeks. One of my roles involves meeting users for our new project to convert their existing data from the old model to the new model. Unfortunately, none of the automated attempts we made worked, as the new data model is extremely different from the previous one, which was established between the 1970s and the 1990s. I am quite familiar with the old data model, as I have worked with it for around 3 to 4 years, and I have interacted with the users we are meeting. The data project has a project manager named Catherine. I had a fairly good relationship with her until this week, as I found her intriguing and self-assured. She also possesses extensive experience with projects of this nature. Although I have returned to work, I am unable to go to the office at this time because my younger sister Anna and her girlfriend Margaret are currently at my small Parisian studio. They traveled from the south of France to celebrate my 30th birthday with me and my friends. They opted to stay for a week to visit me and explore Paris. Who wouldn't? I truly enjoy spending time with both of them since I do not see them often, and as a result, I am not getting much sleep. While they are out, I am working from home to catch up on my backlogged tasks due to my absence, so, unsurprisingly, I am putting in long hours. I have the right to work from home whenever I choose. This has been negotiated with my client. Catherine is also a consultant, so she is not my direct manager but rather my colleague. She strongly urged me to come into the office on Wednesday, which I could not do without asking my sister and her girlfriend to leave as well. Additionally, I was severely sleep-deprived after 2 weeks of birthday celebrations and having them at my place. We went to bed late because we played games together, games I have on my PlayStation 4 that they do not own, or just Fortnite. All things considered, I questioned her about the real reason she wanted me there, explaining that it was complicated for me due to my family being home. Nonetheless, she somewhat pressed me to attend to train the team in using a new application that a new employee, whom I do not know, had developed during my absence, and that we will be using with users in the coming weeks. Reluctantly, I agreed to go, despite not wanting to. My colleagues could tell I was exhausted. The meeting turned out not to be a training session, as the new employee had not completed the application. Consequently, I spent 2.5 hours in a meeting discussing matters without any breaks. We are in France. Breaks are crucial, and many of us are smokers. During that meeting, Catherine asked me to return on Friday to meet some users. I would have to take a train in the morning and return late in the evening, which is part of the job. However, Catherine is aware that I am the only single person on the team without children. I agreed, but since I had not been trained on the new application, I expressed that I could not go alone. She agreed to send the new employee with me, as he would also benefit from being trained on how to engage with users. My sister and her girlfriend were set to leave Paris on Thursday. I felt sad because I cherished the time with them but was drained. I planned to finish work early to ensure I had a full night of rest to be energized for travel the next day. However, before going to bed, I opened Teams to check the address for the following day. I found a message from Catherine stating the new employee was too busy, and I was expected to meet the users alone without any training or having seen the new application. This sparked my anxiety. I chose not to respond because I was panicking and simultaneously feeling very angry. I was unable to sleep throughout the night, and when I finally managed to fall asleep, it was just an hour before my alarm went off. I did not hear my alarm, and upon waking, I realized I had missed my train that had departed 15 minutes prior. This triggered a panic attack. My body reacted instantly. I was crying, shaking, blaming myself, and feeling utterly terrible as though the world were ending. My best friend called me. She works in the same field as I do, and she managed to calm me down, reminding me that I could not go to work in such a state. I chose not to go to work and decided to wait to call my psychiatrist. However, I needed to inform Catherine that I would not be meeting the users today. I was still crying when Catherine answered the phone. I did not want to discuss my personal health issues, especially regarding my mental health, but she demanded more details as to why I was unable to work that day. She seemed upset, which escalated my panic. I called my best friend again, feeling as though I had completely let everyone at work down. I was convinced that I was solely to blame for the situation. Overwhelmed by distress and anguish, I longed to hear my mother's voice. However, that turned out to be the worst decision I could have made. She insisted that I take the next train to get moving, to stop prioritizing myself over everything else, and to grow up and work. I began dissociating and hung up the call, unsure of what had just transpired. I entered a new state because I had hoped my mother would comfort me and lend an ear, but that was not the case. In summary, I saw my psychiatrist, and yes, I was in a high-stress situation that heightened my anxiety. I spoke with my younger sister, who reminded me that I was now recognizing that my parents consistently blame us for everything that happens to us. I have been avoiding my parents. I did not call them and briefly told my dad I was fine and not working, despite needing to work the next day and not feeling ready for it. Today, my mother called Anna to discuss plans for her birthday. My sister's birthday is coming up this March. My mother wanted to see her, but my sister is studying diligently for an exam that will qualify her to become a teacher, and after a car accident, she no longer has a vehicle and must rely on her girlfriend's car. My sister informed my mother that it would be challenging to arrange a birthday meeting due to these reasons. My mother directly asked Anna whether she had spoken with me, to which my sister responded that she did not understand what my mother meant. It was truly unrelated. Apparently, my mother is not speaking to me, which I was unaware of, and my father is also not communicating with me, though he sends me texts, because they were displeased with what I told them. To be fair, I was angry and panicking, so I was not the most pleasant person at that moment, but I never insult anyone. Consequently, I do not comprehend what I said wrong. I merely requested them to listen and comfort me, as I did not reach out to them to be reprimanded. As a result, I remain anxious about everything unfolding and my return to work. Now, I would like to know if I am in the wrong. Considering that people my age believe I was not in the wrong for having a panic attack after being pressured into presenting a new application I had never seen or used before a group of users. In summary, I was compelled to present a new application I had never encountered or utilized to users. I experienced a panic attack and did not attend work. I reached out to my parents for comfort, but they blamed me, and now they are not speaking to me. Am I the asshole? Story 3. I found my husband's hidden Reddit account, saw porn posts he lied about, and it shattered my trust. Now I feel lost and paranoid. I require assistance in addressing what I believe to be betrayal trauma, but there is so much to explore. I am a 34-year-old female who has been with my husband, a 37-year-old male, for 15 years. He is my closest friend, and I care for him deeply, yet we have experienced numerous highs and lows. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and I am fairly certain that I have quiet borderline personality disorder stemming from childhood trauma. I am currently addressing these issues with my therapist. I suspect my husband may be on the autism spectrum. Over the years, we have encountered many conflicts and misunderstandings. Toward the end of last year, we were trying to navigate a challenging period. He informed me that he had made a post about me on Reddit, mentioning that people were advising him to leave me. When I asked to see the post, he refused, later acknowledging that he may have portrayed himself as a martyr in it. A few days later, while preparing to close a Reddit tab on the computer, I noticed it was logged in under a username I did not recognize. It was a feminine name, which puzzled me since only my husband and I used this computer. When I clicked on it, it loaded a profile, displaying a preview of a post in an ADHD subreddit. Upon seeing the title, I realized it was my husband's account and the post he had referenced. I felt a surge of anxiety, my heart raced, my ears pounded, my vision blurred, and I began trembling. I briefly contemplated reading the post but ultimately decided against it, as I did not wish to see anything that might confirm what others had said about leaving me. For some inexplicable reason, I chose to look at his saved posts, hoping to glean some insight or helpful information regarding relationships, as I often save posts like that. Instead, I discovered an assortment of pornography, which shattered me. When we first began dating, I had asked if he viewed pornography, and he had answered no. I had no reason to doubt him, and while I expected him to watch it, he insisted he did not. I wouldn't have told him he couldn't watch it, nor would I have expressed disapproval, since I grew up thinking it was normal for men and occasionally viewed it myself. Yet, I felt fortunate to have a partner who did not watch it, someone who did not even gaze at other women or mention any celebrities he found attractive. It made me feel validated, as if I was sufficient and all he desired. I recognize that it is human nature to find others appealing, but he never displayed any interest. Thus, discovering the pornography felt like a gut punch. At that moment, I was undoubtedly in some state of distress. Unsure of how to handle the situation, I felt shattered and overwhelmed. Not wanting him to know that I was aware, I deleted the browser history and did my best to compose myself before he returned home. That night, I became upset and suggested it stemmed from body image issues. He dismissed my feelings, told me I was overreacting, and showered me with compliments about my body, to which I thought, why not believe it? I ordered numerous pieces of sexy lingerie. We began having incredible sex, and things improved dramatically. From what I have read, I was likely experiencing hysterical bonding. A few days later, I encountered that name on Reddit again and fell apart. My mood soured and feeling unwell, I eventually shared with him what I had discovered. He accused me of lying, insisted that I had been snooping on his Reddit account, and claimed that profiles do not appear as I described. He was furious. When he asked for more details, I provided them, but he continued to disbelieve me, questioning why I hadn't initially shared that information. He stated he would check the browser history to see if I had read his post. I replied affirmatively, unsure if I had deleted it during my panic. He returned even angrier because I had removed it, leading him to conclude I was lying. He deleted all of his content from the computer and clearly no longer trusted me around his belongings. I felt utterly devastated because I had not been snooping, and I was not lying, yet nothing I communicated could convince him. I had attempted to discuss something that was tormenting me, and it only worsened my situation, leaving me on edge around his possessions when we had always been comfortable with one another concerning that aspect. This took place in December. I made several attempts to discuss the matter with him. I expressed my discomfort, as I believed he only had eyes for me, which frustrated him greatly, and he claimed it made him feel terrible. He insisted that when he views pornography, he is not even focused on the individuals involved, which I understand, but there were saved images as well, indicating he was still looking at others. I attempted to clarify that I was indifferent to the pornography itself, but he maintained that I was not. I genuinely am indifferent. It is the secrecy surrounding it that troubles me. He asserted that I made him feel uneasy about it, which is why he lied. He requested that I not bring it up again. We are working through our issues, and things are improving. I try to approach discussions about the situation positively, without directly addressing the pornography, but he becomes irritated and reminds me that he has stated he doesn't want to talk about it. We are putting significant effort into our marriage, and we have made more progress than ever before understanding one another better, gaining insight into myself as I never had before, responding to each other more effectively, and enjoying a richer and more frequent sex life. I had desired sex nearly every night, but was often turned down. In some respects, I am grateful for the revelation about the pornography because it has ultimately benefited us. However, since I made that discovery, I have been plagued by a nagging sensation in my gut that refuses to subside. I am unsure how to label it dread, perhaps. I feel as if I am anticipating further negativity. On good days, the feeling diminishes. On bad days, it overwhelms me. I find myself internally grappling with triggers. He is not the person I once thought he was, and I suspect I am grieving the loss of that image. Yet that seems overly dramatic. I cannot fathom when he would have engaged with it. Our lives are hectic, and we share most activities. Did he do it while lying next to me in bed? I craved intimacy frequently and simply assumed he wasn't as interested. If he had been forthcoming, I don't believe it would have affected me nearly as deeply. It is the concealment that generates concern. I recognize he experiences guilt and shame over it, yet I feel that is not the entirety of it. The secret accounts on Reddit, his deletion of all his profiles and files from the computer, I cannot articulate it, but I have this feeling that something is being concealed. However, I genuinely do not believe he is doing anything beyond watching porn. The issue is that I previously did not believe he was watching it, which undermines my ability to trust my own judgment. He is a fantastic man and an exceptional father. He consistently wakes up first with our daughter, offers to cook after my long days, and even when my days are less hectic, cleans up, does the dishes, and is a genuinely hands-on and fun dad. He is a generous lover and remarkably intelligent. He is always acquiring knowledge. He makes me laugh, brings me joy, and still gives me butterflies. I still view him as the best person imaginable. Yet, when I face triggering moments, a wave of darkness engulfs me, accompanied by paranoia, bitterness, and pain. I am reluctant to bring this up. I do not wish to violate his boundary regarding discussions of pornography. However, suppressing these feelings will ultimately destroy me. I have addressed it with my therapist, but there is so much more for us to unpack together. We are currently in a good place, and I wish to avoid bringing negativity into our relationship, yet I do not want to harm myself. If I attempt to discuss it, I fear I will misspeak or misrepresent my thoughts. Honestly, I wish I could erase my memories, akin to the concept in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Story 4. After nearly 10 years, my fiancé's weight gain, changed interests, and intrusive behavior made me question our relationship's future. This is an anonymous account for privacy. This is quite lengthy, but I would appreciate any feedback from those who have experienced similar issues and can offer helpful advice. Hello, my fiancé, 36 years old, and I, 34 years old, have been in a relationship for almost a decade. We initially met while working together at a previous employer, although we no longer share the same workplace. Our current jobs often involve overtime, and can occasionally be quite stressful and mentally exhausting. Consequently, I may have developed the poor habit of allowing unresolved issues to linger rather than addressing them as I should have in hindsight. This avoidance has resulted in a significant accumulation of concerns over time, leading to a noticeable decline in my attraction to my partner compared to how I felt initially. While I acknowledge my part in this, I genuinely want to improve our situation before it worsens. We share a home, a dog, and no children. For some context, when we began our relationship, we were both actively engaged in fitness and would go to the gym together while also pursuing our own routines. We enjoyed hiking and taking long walks when the weather permitted. Nothing too intense, but we maintained a reasonable level of physical activity. This changed a few years into our relationship. My fiancée may have overextended herself, losing interest in working out. Perhaps my frequent gym visits were overwhelming for her. Regardless, she eventually canceled her gym membership while I continued exercising with a friend. Over time, my fiancé's weight increased from 145 pounds to 230 pounds. I may have also gained weight, but I managed to maintain my fitness since I continued working out. In fact, she even remarked that I was becoming rather bulky and suggested I reduce my muscle-building efforts, which I did. At that time, I still found my fiancée attractive despite her weight gain, as I believe she has a lovely face and I remained drawn to her personality. Fast forward a few years, and unexpectedly, my fiancée now claims to detest walking and insists she would prefer never to walk at all, which I find perplexing considering we used to take walks frequently, often 3 to 5 times a week. We also have a dog who, in my opinion, rightfully deserves regular walks, bringing him joy. Although we still walk our dog together most days, the knowledge that she now dislikes walking makes me hesitant to suggest similar activities when we travel or commute, given her clear aversion to it. Moreover, my fiancée is a significant movie buff. She subscribes to numerous streaming platforms, including YouTube Premium, and has reached a point where she is running out of watchable content. Frequently, she will rewatch films or shows just to have something to view. I used to join her in watching new movies and shows, and still do on occasion, but my engagement has diminished significantly compared to hers. This has led to a degree of disconnection between us, which is acceptable to a certain extent. I may watch or listen to my own content on my phone or get some work done, while she immerses herself in whatever media I find uninteresting. However, there have been many instances where I found myself sitting at home contemplating how we were spending our time. I frequently felt we could use our time more productively than simply passively consuming content. She suggested that I am the one with issues enjoying staying home, as I often preferred going out instead of remaining indoors watching television. That being said, we still share enjoyable experiences, such as traveling twice a year and savoring good food, both at restaurants and home-cooked meals, so we are not entirely disconnected. Additionally, our similar job fields allow us to share ideas and discuss our work challenges, which is a positive aspect of our relationship. However, I believe our differences have become more pronounced over time. Fast forward to a pleasant summer evening where we had dinner and were walking back to our car around 10:11 p.m. in a bustling part of the city. A black SUV with several young individuals, aged 18 to 20, passed us, windows down, music blaring. The occupants were shouting and laughing as they drove by. Although we were not alone on the street, other people were present too. I personally couldn't discern what was said and didn't care much. However, my fiancée, who can be quite temperamental, launched into an intense reaction. She assumed the young people were mocking us. I expressed that it was illogical to concern ourselves with the opinions of strangers at night or to get upset over something we couldn't even hear. To this day, I remain unaware of what could have been said, and when I asked her, she couldn't provide a clear explanation beyond her belief that they were laughing at us. I thought the matter would end there, but perhaps due to her inability to confront those in the SUV, she instead vented her frustrations at me once we got into the car, leveling accusations like, "Why didn't you defend me?" I explained that I wouldn't engage in an argument with strangers over something I didn't even hear. I also reminded her of our jobs necessitating security clearance. I had no intention of risking legal trouble over such triviality. In hindsight, I realized that perhaps I should not have been so logical given the emotional nature of the situation, which only escalated her frustration. She accused me of apathy, stating, "I could be assaulted in the street, and you wouldn't even help." That felt extremely inappropriate, and it left me upset and silent, recognizing that nothing positive would arise from the conversation at that moment, as she was directly questioning my character and making heavy implications. We've since moved on from that night and never discussed it again, but I cannot seem to forget her words. In fact, I believe that incident has significantly impacted my feelings toward her, as it continues to linger in my thoughts. Additionally, she has developed the habit of going through my phone. Initially, I was fine with it, feeling I had nothing to conceal. However, it quickly escalated to an uncomfortable level. I would occasionally wake up to find my phone had clearly been used, with pictures opened and left in random places within my camera roll. I noticed that all my internet tabs had been checked. This became so bothersome that I suspected she had spoiled a surprise birthday gift I bought her. After I noticed her reaction when she received it, I felt she must have known what it was. When I inquired, she denied knowing anything. She would also discuss items from my browsing history that I had never mentioned to her, which made me feel uneasy, as if she was deliberately trying to make it known that she was monitoring me, which felt invasive. Ultimately, I decided to change my phone password, triggering a near-explosive reaction, and soon after, she began scrutinizing my Instagram followers, interrogating me about the identities of various accounts. This occurred at 1 or 2 a.m., waking me up with questions like, "Who is this person?" I would explain my reasons for following certain individuals, only for her to retort, "You definitely have a type," prompting me to fall silent and return to sleep, leaving us both frustrated in the morning. She assumed I was hiding something she has been cheated on in the past, while I felt disillusioned that she must really think poorly of my character to imply these accusations. Our sex life has significantly declined over the years. While she desires intimacy, I find myself less interested lately. She confided that she feels creepy for always wanting sex and feeling rejected. I did tell her that my attraction has waned since she gained weight, but in hindsight, I think it might be more of a mental than physical issue as I reflect on this. I am unsure how to address these issues. I do not know if our relationship is salvageable, so any thoughts or advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your attention. Story 5. Always felt invisible in my family, ignored and alone. Then they suddenly reached out, acting as if nothing happened. What now? Here it goes. I have been contemplating this for quite some time, and I have never shared it anywhere, but now I feel compelled to express it. During my childhood, I was the one who never truly seemed significant to anyone in my family. It was not as though they were unkind to me. It was more like I simply did not exist. I felt invisible. They would congregate, converse, laugh, and engage in various activities while I remained in the background, merely observing. Occasionally, I would attempt to join them, but it never succeeded. It felt as though I was not even speaking their language. They shared a connection that I could not penetrate no matter what I tried. From the very beginning, it was clear to me that I was not the favored child. My siblings received all the attention. Without uttering a word, my parents made it obvious that they were the ones who mattered, the ones who excelled at everything while I faded into the background. I never did anything to distinguish myself. I was merely a shy child who sought to fulfill my obligations without causing any issues, yet that seemed insufficient. I struggled to do anything right, despite my efforts. As I grew older, conditions did not improve, they actually worsened. I began to feel as if I was no longer a member of the family. It was not merely a matter of being overlooked. It was how they treated me, as though I was an outsider at family gatherings. They would converse amongst themselves, behaving as if I were not even present. Sometimes I would interject, only to be met with silence or dismissive comments that made it clear my feelings and opinions were of no consequence. When I tried to engage, it felt akin to speaking to a wall. With time, I started to wonder if it was my fault. Perhaps I was simply too different or never meant to fit in with them. I began to distance myself even further, ceasing my attempts to connect with them because it felt futile. I wanted to stop trying to make them acknowledge me when I felt they never would. I stopped attending family gatherings and ceased all communication with them, choosing instead to focus on my own life. I concluded that there was no point. However, something shifted. I cannot pinpoint exactly when it occurred, but one day I began receiving messages from them. Initially, it was just an occasional text, but then it became more frequent. They started calling me, inquiring about my life, asking how I was doing. Suddenly, they appeared to care. Suddenly, they wanted to know what was happening in my life. It felt as though they offered no apology for how they had treated me throughout the years. It was as if nothing had transpired and all I had endured meant nothing to them. At first, I was uncertain how to respond. I experienced a cocktail of confusion, anger, and hurt. Part of me yearned to yell at them, articulating how much they had wounded me, how they had never made me feel like I belonged to the family. Yet another part of me wanted to let it all go and possibly allow them another opportunity to fit back into my life again. Deep down, I wished to believe that they had changed. Perhaps they genuinely cared about me now. Perhaps they wanted to be a family once more. So, I resumed communication with them. I began answering their phone calls and replying to their texts, and the whole experience felt utterly bizarre. It was as if I were conversing with strangers, despite their familial connection. I hardly recognized them anymore. I struggled to find the right words because the years of being ignored had erected a wall between us, and now I didn't know how to dismantle it. Conversations felt awkward and forced, and every time we spoke, it felt as if we were pretending to share closeness while, in reality, I was unsure if I could trust any of them anymore. I remain caught in a dilemma, uncertain of the best course of action. Part of me desires to completely shut them out because it seems they are only re-entering my life now that I have achieved something meaningful. It feels as if they did not care when I was struggling, but now that I have made a name for myself, they think they can just waltz back into my life as if nothing occurred. Nevertheless, another part of me wonders if this might be an opportunity to repair the situation. Perhaps I can rebuild those fractured relationships and grant them a second chance. Perhaps they genuinely want to be a family now. Maybe they have learned from their past mistakes. I truly do not know what to do. A part of me feels angry and hurt and wishes to distance myself, while another part is optimistic, believing that people can change and we can start anew and become a real family once again. However, I am fearful that if I allow them back into my life, I might simply end up hurt once more. Has anyone else encountered a similar situation? How do you manage relationships with family members who have treated you as though you did not matter for years, only to suddenly seek involvement in your life when things are going well for you? Do you grant them a second chance, or do you prioritize your own well-being and maintain your distance? I am at a loss regarding what the right decision is.